What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. Of course, you are watching TWA Motorsports. We got Kohen back here, and check out this huge mistake behind me that's getting ready to go down in the shop. Now, look, Kohen says he's doing this all. I'm just gonna be here for pointers. I'm gonna let him do it. Up until he gets the transmission out, he probably won't need much help. But, guys, he's making a horrible decision by putting a torque converter in this car. Now, we've got it sitting over here. The Circle D converter, his money. It's not cheap, and this car runs perfect, so why not wreck it, right? But look, has to have that in order to put the cam in that he got, and we're just doing the converter right now, right? Just the converter. So he's getting started, guys. We came out here. What? You don't know what?
Might do both.
He says he may do both. I doubt it. We're just gonna stay right now. He's doing the converter. But we got this thing off the ground. You can see we got it quite a ways off the ground. I know a lot of people are gonna say, why didn't you do it on your lift? Well, a 4-post lift doesn't really lend itself to doing this swap. If you guys don't also know, the transmission is in the back of a Corvette, so that makes things a little more challenging. But he's gonna work on getting this started. I think he's gonna start with the wheels, and I'm just gonna be cutting in and out on this project, guys. Like I said, I'm not doing it, but I thought I would kind of show you guys some of the process. He's got it all locked and loaded over there, getting ready to take the wheels off. I feel like it's very stable. We've got the K-Tech pucks in there. I will list a link to the pucks, whether you buy K-Techs or the others. I bought these for the ZR1 side skirts, so they're a little bigger. We've got it on a homemade DSC wheel stands, and the car is very sturdy right now, so I have no problems with him getting under it. I don't think there's going to be any issues there. So he's going to knock the wheels off, and then guys, we'll go from there. Now that he's got the wheels off, he's on the other side working at getting this wiring clip undone. So you just unplug this guy, and he's going to work his way down and get all these unclipped. And then there's a ground over here that he's getting. Some Corvettes have it on both sides, but there's a 10mm ground back there in the back. But he's getting all the clips undone. He's just using a flat blade screwdriver, popping them apart. Guys, leave them on one of the wires. It doesn't matter which one. You can leave it on the wire, the e-brake cable, doesn't really matter, but he's gonna work his way through that. Next couple things we've done, we took the e-brake cable out. If you guys relieve pressure on that spring, pull the spring down, it'll come right out of this opening right here, see that? And then it just comes off the end. This is what you should have when you're all finished. It should look like that. And then these wires that he's got undone, see that? He's got the clips and everything undone. He's gonna loosen the exhaust next because I think it's gonna get in our way. So what he's gonna do is, this thing has aftermarket exhaust. If you guys remember, we put that in. He's gonna loosen the exhaust back here, and then I'm gonna have him take the clamps off that hold the exhaust in the back, and I'm really hoping we can thread that exhaust out. Chances are probably not, but believe me, it'll help once we get that loose. I think it'll give us an additional amount of room. You know, I think taking the exhaust off is a must here, guys. He's got all the exhaust loose from the back. So like, when I say the back, he took the clamps loose that come in right here to the back, like the cat back. He took the ones ahead of that loose. He took the mounts that hold the exhaust to the back of the car loose. So the exhaust should be pretty loose, and then he undid the MPP. Okay, so guys, we're to a point where we're really gonna have to crack these brake lines. Now, look, you're gonna have to bleed the brakes when you do this process because, well, the brake lines all come out with this cradle. But we're gonna start here. We're gonna get the brake line loose on this guy right here. Once he does that, I'm gonna have him take the 10mm out that holds the line right here to the cradle. And the reason we're gonna do that first is because when you take your upper mounts loose for your upper A-arms, this thing's gonna put a ton of pressure on that brake line, and we don't wanna screw any of the brake lines up. I don't think he wants to buy brake lines right now, which I wouldn't either, but it'd be a good time to upgrade to stainless if you wanted to do that. But either way, we're gonna get that loose right there, and then I'm gonna show you the other side because at that point, we really don't need to do much other than get this line out. We gotta take the clip out, we gotta take that loose. Actually, we don't even have to take the clip out, I take that back. If we take that 10mm out, once we get the line loose, this whole piece with the bracket will come out. So he's been working a little ahead here. He's got the upper A-arm bolts out, so those are 18 millimeter, and then he put pressure on the bottom of that bottom A-arm. And the reason we're doing that is we want to have pressure up against it because that shock could potentially push it down and cause issues that we don't want. So he's got those out now. Those are 13s? Okay. So now he can let the pressure off the jack, and we should be completely loose on the, that shock will hopefully start to come out. I don't think this has mag ride, so we don't have anything else to unhook on it.
All the way off?
Yeah, all the way off. All right. Yeah, so we're loose there. Look, guys, try to keep this stuff centered so it's not just, you know, putting ton of pressure on ball joints, especially the lower down here. But he's out, and so you can see I capped off the brake line. So now at this point, I need to go over here. I've been doing the brake lines just because I don't want those to get screwed up if something happened. Let me feel like, if we screw up the brake lines, we're gonna have problems, right? So I don't know if you guys can see, there's two brake lines on this side. See the one that's got the junction in it? I don't know if you can see that back there. It is right behind the brake line that comes out to this wheel. We need to undo that junction, and at the same time I'm going to undo the brake line for here. And so what that's going to allow, you can either do the top or the bottom, it doesn't really matter, just put a wrench in the middle and loosen it. And then same thing, we're going to loosen this one that comes out to this wheel, and then take the 10 millimeter out, and then he'll duplicate all the stuff. So the 18 millimeters for the A-arms, the 13s for the shock with the jack underneath it. And then guys, we'll have most of the cradle loose. We'll double check our wiring, make sure we don't have any wiring in there, but this will allow that hard line to stay on the actual cradle as we lower it out of the way. He's got both sides out now, shock, upper A-arm. So now he's moving to the transmission mounts, which there's two 18 millimeters. You guys can see them right there, the studs sticking down. He's taking those 18s out. And then we're gonna have to get in there with a pry bar and pop the axles loose. I really don't wanna I don't wanna take this apart. I don't think he does either, to get the axle out that way. So what we'll do is we will, I mean, it's up to you. If you want these hanging off the end when you're dropping the cradle, you can, but to me it'd be easier without that. We are to a point now where we can go ahead and probably remove the cradle. Look, so some things we need to watch for. One, we're gonna have to get, he went ahead and got those 18 millimeters loose that hold the trans mount in place. So now the trans mount is, well, the trans is setting on the cradle, right? So just the weight of it. Everything's loose. I didn't show you guys this, but I got under there and popped the axles out. You just get in between and kind of pry them out. Just normal removal there. The only thing we're gonna have to watch is as we come down, normally guys, I would say we would wanna tuck like our e-brake cable and our wiring in, but we can't really do that because the exhaust is in the way. So my hopes is that we're gonna get another jack and a board and support the transmission underneath the trans pan. And I've got this jack right in the middle of the leaf pack, and we're gonna go ahead and loosen up our 4 cradle bolts, can't even say it. So that one right there, you can see that stud and that one there. And you need to do this by hand because there's been stories of if you use an impact, it'll actually unthread from the body. And then, oh my gosh, would you have a mess trying to fix that? So crack those loose with a breakover bar or a ratchet if you can do it, like a 1/2-inch ratchet. But aside from that, we're gonna loosen those up and we're gonna kind of start to lower this thing down. We have the front supported with jack stands, okay? We've got the 21s out. I'm blinding you guys with the light here. The 21 millimeters, that's what holds it to the frame. All right, so there are 2 clips. You guys can see the back side of them there that we needed to unclip. So between me and Kohen, we were able to reach in there and get those unclipped. Kohen actually went from the top side to get this one. I went from the bottom side to get the front one. But we have lowered the cradle down quite a bit, so you can see. Now, what we're planning on doing here is continuing the progress of the cradle going down, and then the transmission obviously is going to be resting on the 2 jack stands. Now I do have those rubber pieces on the jack stand, so if you guys are wondering, and then I've got one on the transmission. Once we get this thing clear, then we'll go ahead and pull the exhaust out, and we'll be able to go back and put another jack under the transaxle back here, the axle itself. Just like that, it's out. So you can see why we undid the brake line on both sides. The brake line stays on the cradle. That way we don't have to try to mess with getting it out of the way. You can also see the axles, but there's the other brake line there. That's the one that goes up to the junction. Remember, we took the bottom of it off. And then the one that goes out, it's still in the car to that line. Obviously, this is the one that goes out to this line. You can see the axles, the whole thing is out. And Kohen's working on getting the little spring clamps loose because, guys, the exhaust is not wanting to come out like I thought it might. It's such a pain to get the exhaust in and out of these cars. But once he gets that loose, I think that'll drop down and give us the room we need to like pull the mufflers off, because it's really hard to access anything or see anything with these ginormous mufflers back in the back. You can see he's got one kind of drop down now, but we're working on getting the exhaust out of the way, and then we'll move on to our next step, which is starting to unbolt like torque converter bolts and the actual trans itself. Now that we got the exhaust out, we got to get the converter bolts out. So what we've done is we spun it around. Kohen's getting ready to take this out with a 15 millimeter. See that? I'm going to try to show you how we spun it around. We used a 15 short up here, took this access panel out in the front of the bell housing, like where your normal transmission would be. And we reached up in there and put that 15 on the center, and basically we're putting it on tighten. So as we tighten, it's rolling this around and getting our converter lined up. So now we're gonna knock the converter bolts out. They're 15 millimeter. And hopefully we'll go to the transmission bolts next. We got all the converter bolts out now. And as you can see, we went ahead and took the 13 millimeter, the rear, or I'm gonna call it the rear facing one, right? The one in the middle. Went ahead and took it out. Now we're gonna move to the other side. We've got to get some harnesses out of the way, because obviously there's some electronic controls on the side. This is another reason why I wanted the exhaust out of the way. Look how much room we have here with no exhaust. I mean, could you do it with the exhaust? Yeah, but man, would it be a pain. Took a clip removal tool and just pop the linkage off. And then you can see up above that, there's a bracket that holds that thing in place. Those, I think, are 13 millimeters. Those are just nuts to hold that in place. We need to get that out of place. And then you can see there's a wiring clip here that we need to pry off of the transmission. It's just a clip, okay? There's no bolt or anything holding it on. I feel like we've skipped a little bit here, but there were two studs on the side where I might have showed you guys that. I don't know. We've been recording this just when we have time of an evening. So there are two little studs that hold the shift linkage in place on the driver's side. Okay, on the passenger side, up there in the very top, Kohen just took off the two studs that hold a wiring harness in place. And now, I don't know if you guys can see, up there in the very middle, there is our top stud, like almost in the 12 o'clock position, and then another one in the 1, and so on and so forth. The other thing we did was there was some clips like these style that just pushed off of a stud on the rear end. We pulled those off, so all our wiring is loose. I also unhooked this, guys. There was a clip in this, and then this just like unscrews almost. You just push this thing around. That's your shift control. The only thing I couldn't show you guys is back behind this. This was actually zip tied. This is the vent tube for the transmission. But guys, it's go time. We're gonna get the 8 bolts out. They should be 13 millimeter. We already got the forward facing one, the one that comes in from the front towards the back. We got that one out. We're gonna get another jack under here with a block of wood, and we're just gonna make sure that we have it pretty stable as we're taking these. I think there's 8 total. We may be down to 7 now. 13 millimeters out. Kind of keep in mind that some of them don't have a stud on them. All right, so like this one down here in like the 4 o'clock position, it does not have a stud. And we need to remember that when we go back together, because those brackets have to have the ones with the stud, if that makes sense. So try to take note of that, where those are at. And same thing with the other ones. But we're gonna go ahead and attempt to get those loose. I'm going to grab another jack. We're gonna support it both with the jack on the rear end like we've got now, and another jack with a block of wood under the pan. And yeah, we're gonna pull this thing out. It's out. A little bit of a fight, because we had to use my little jack, because we have 3 jacks here. Guys, look, when we're going back in, we're gonna have to get a jack that is for like a transmission. We're gonna have to get a transmission attachment for one of my jacks or something. It's just the balancing is just terrible on these. Trying to balance it and not drop it, which we were able to do. It just took a long time. You'll notice that we took the trans mounts off the side as well because I didn't want it to break a stud. And so we're out, right? So now, really, I consider this, you know, almost halfway, because all we have to do is pull the converter out. We're waiting on some transmission fluid though before we go back together, because you do need to fill the transmission, pre-fill the converter, I mean, with transmission fluid. Now, we did lose a little trans fluid on the lines, not a lot though. Honestly, guys, we lost more diff fluid because of the balancing of this. So we're gonna have to definitely check the diff fluid level, and we'll do that before, obviously, we key this thing up and start it. But Kohen's cleaning up all the mess down there, which there's quite a bit, and it's gear oil, so it smells terrible. But we'll let you know when we cut back in and start getting the new converter in. As you can see, trans is out. I got a buddy of mine, Justin, that let me borrow his it's actually a motorcycle jack, but believe me guys, having this when we're putting this back in will make a huge difference. But look, we got to get the old converter out. Kohen's got the new converter from Circle D sitting right here. So what needs to happen is we don't want to put this in empty, okay? So pull this off, and we're going to try to put some transmission fluid in there. So he's going to go grab a quart of tranny fluid, and we're just using the stock GM fluid. I actually got it from GM. Just makes me feel better since we're not changing. I mean, this is a super low mile car, right? So I want to keep the same fluid that came in it. So that's what we're going to do. So he's going to go grab the trans fluid, pour at least a quart, maybe 2 quarts if we can get it. But a quart, we're going to try for a quart for sure. Guys, look, when you're filling these up, it's going to bubble up and not want to like go down into place. You're going to have to let it set, maybe slosh it back and forth, like, you know, right to left, front to back, whatever. But then we can just pull this old one out of the old transmission, or the transmission. We'll get this one out of the way, and then we'll hopefully get the new one in. And then between me and him, I'm hoping we can lift it up and put it on this jack and get it started back into position. So after the world's hardest converter seat, guys, look, it did not want to go in all the way. I didn't show you this on camera because generally you get 3 clicks, at least on the older 4L60 stuff you did. We got 2 clicks and it was out quite a ways, like 5 inches, and measuring from a pad to the mating surface with the old converter was about 4 inches. We were at like 5.5, so it obviously wasn't seated all the way, but we got it seated now. We've got it positioned on the jack. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna attempt to roll this sucker under there, get it put right back in the same hole that it came out of. Believe me, using this jack should make our life a lot easier, at least I'm hoping. We'll just have to see as we go up. But yeah, that's our next step. And then we'll get, obviously, some of our bolts started. Remember the ones like these 2 here, and I think this one had the studs on them, right? Because it had a bracket on the backside. So just remember that. The lower ones we know did not have brackets, so those won't have a stud on the outside. But anyway, we're gonna get it swung under here and hopefully back up into place where we can get the jack out from under it and continue our work. All right, we have the transmission back in. Torqued all the bolts to 37 foot-pounds of trans bolts, okay? Kohen is torquing the, we had to take these off to gain some room. We didn't want to break them. So he's torquing those right now, or I think that's what he's doing. What are you doing?
Snug them down by hand first.
Oh yeah. He's doing
Something.
Kohen millimeter. Kohen foot-pounds. All right, so anyway, guys, this is a pain to get up in place. You can see that motorcycle jack really helped, but I got my buddy Nathan out here helping as well. So 3 of us to get it back in was way easier than just me and Kohen last night. But anyway, 37 foot-pounds for all the bolts that bolt the trans to the torque tube. Now, make sure that your torque converter still spins. Ours does. Also, you know, you got to clear the lines over here. I don't have a 13 back in that, but I did go ahead. We got the brackets on that hold the shift linkage. Kohen is working on these guys, and we're just gonna kind of keep plugging away until we get what we need.